Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Iconic Dollcast. My name is Sage, your host. Welcome back to another episode all about dolls. I'm very excited because today I have author Angela Cervantes on the show, and Angela wrote the books for the brand new American Girl Girl of the Year doll, Raquel Reyes. I have always been a huge fan of American Girl dolls, as you can see, but the Girl of the Year line has never really been my thing. But this doll is being talked about like no other Girl of the Year ever before, and that is because Raquel is a descendant of the iconic Samantha Parkington. I honestly love this idea. I think it's very cool that American Girl is bringing some of those OG characters into the Girl of the Year line. I think this is game-changing. I am hoping that from here on out, all of the American Girl Girl of the Year dolls have some kind of a relation with one of the OG historical characters. So we're going to talk all about that and more. We're going to jump right into it. As always, please follow me on Instagram at Iconic Dollcast or Britney Spears Custom Dolls. You can follow me on TikTok at Britney Spears Dolls. And please, if you haven't yet, go head over to my YouTube channel at Iconic Dollcast. Subscribe, like, comment. It really helps get my podcast out there. But right now, let's get into my interview with Angela Cervantes all about Raquel Reyes. All right, everyone. Today I have American Girl author Angela Cervantes on the show, and we are going to talk all about the brand new Girl of the Year, Raquel Reyes, which I'm very, very excited for. Angela, thank you so much for being here. Before we get into Raquel and the book, tell me a little bit about yourself and kind of how you found yourself where you're at today.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on your show. Appreciate the invite. A little bit about myself. I started writing when I was probably about 9 years old, probably about Raquel's age in the book. Just fascinated with books and stories. Growing up, I loved Barbie dolls. I loved paper dolls. I loved the fashion. And I really feel like Barbie dolls and dolls were sort of my way of creating and imagining stories already at a young age because you've got to come up with plots and characters and fun things like that. But I started seriously writing probably around the age of 9, very inspired by books because I loved books. I loved to read all the books and inspired by my teachers who encouraged me to read, all of my girlfriends who loved to read my stories when I was a kid and would ask for more. And so it just kind of always stuck with me that I wanted to be someone who wrote stories. And I always wanted to write stories about girls like me. And what I mean specifically about that is Mexican American girls. Like my growing up, I had lots of great protagonists in the books that I loved, but a lot of them weren't Mexican American. And I just remember always wanting to sort of see my culture somehow involved in those books, whether it was kids going off to a quinceañera party, or maybe celebrating Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, or just even eating our food, like tacos or enchiladas, or going to grandma's house for delicious, mole, chicken mole dinner. And those sort of aspects of my real life showed up in all my stories that I wrote. So I felt like I was sort of onto something, like that I could write these stories and these stories could exist. Fast forward into college, fast forward into finding a real job out in the real world. Every job I ever had was writing, not fiction writing, a lot of, proposal writing, story writings, nonfiction type of writing, article writing, website writing. And then I finally got my big break with Scholastic in 2012 with my first book, Gabby Lost and Found. And I was very fortunate. And this is the kind of book that I wanted to read when I was a kid. It's, again, very much like American Girl dog books. It's kind of got your spunky, feisty main character, your protagonist, who wants to save animals, and get them adopted from the animal shelter. But on top of that, lots of friendship drama going on the side.
Of course.
And that was my first book. And little did I know that book would do so well that I didn't realize that once you're an author and you sell a lot of copies and kids like you and teachers like you and librarians want to put you on the bookshelf, you never have to stop writing. You never have to stop writing. Like people will keep coming to you asking you for more books. And so one thing led to another. I wrote a second book, a third book. At one point, Disney reached out to me to write the junior novelization for Coco. Did you know that? For Coco
No.
and later Encanto. And then American Girl Doll reached out to me. And the first time they reached out to me was back with Maritza. Do you remember Maritza?
Of
Lead with Your
course.
Heart, part of
Yes.
that World by Us series, remember? That came out, I feel like, right during the COVID sort of shutdown when we were all, staying home and staying safe. So there was no real big party for that, but I remember writing that book, that novel at that time. And I love Maritza's story so much. I love that whole World by Us series. It was super fun. And I kind of just hoped that American Girl would come back around and reach out to me again. And they did. And they reached out to me in, I believe, February of 2024 and told me they were working on a Girl of the Year doll and if I would be interested. And so here it comes back around, a chance to work with American Girl dolls again. And I'm so happy I had that opportunity.
That is incredible. Yes, I knew you were a very well-known author, but I did not know all of the works that you had done. And when it comes to American Girl, is that something you grew up with? Like, were you familiar with the brand? Like, when they reached out to you, were you like, "Oh my God, this is crazy"? I mean, I grew up with American Girl, classic American Girl, and I loved reading, and the books were always like the most special part to me. I was raised by my grandparents, and so
Oh,
a big part of education was obviously a big part of my life, and I was always encouraged to read. And the American Girl books were really some of the first books that I was ever reading on my own. My first American Girl doll was Josefina,
oh,
and
I love
ev-
Josefina.
and it happened that way because and I got her in 1997.
Yes.
I was 7 years old, and a part of the reason my grandma chose her for me was because we used to go to Santa Fe, and then finally they put out this doll, and I can bring this doll with me to Santa Fe, and there's all these connections, and I'm reading the books, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like we're here, so cool. So how was American Girl for you growing up? Like when did you discover the brand? Tell me all about that.
I discovered the brand not as a child because I'm showing my age here, but I don't think the first dolls were launched until like 1986, 1987, somewhere
Correct.
around there. So I was already well into like high school, and I wasn't even playing with my Barbies anymore at this point. But I have nieces who are very much into American Girl dolls, and I'm in Kansas City, and we didn't really get a store until maybe 10 years ago, but it closed down during the COVID lockdown. So we
Yeah.
don't even have a store here anymore. But I remember seeing the store and being fascinated by all the magic that happens inside. I mean, it's beautiful. It's just beautiful. And I have nieces that one of them in particular who loves Samantha Parkington, always talks about Samantha Parkington. That's the doll that resonated with her. Now, I later, because my mom's a fifth grade teacher, discovered all the American Girl books, Josefina, Luciana, and things like that, because my mom had her girls in school reading those books. So I was familiar in that way to them. And Josefina, I have to admit, is one of my favorite all-time
She
stories.
is my
It's just
favorite.
so good. Samantha Parkington. Josefina is just a beautiful story, well written, and that's what I love about American Girl dolls. It's not just about the dolls, but it's the stories behind them. It just gives them so much texture. It gives them so much. Girls, you actually learn stuff about history when you read these
Yeah,
books. And I think it's just a fascinating way of making history more amazing and more interesting to a younger generation.
totally. And I just, again, like the books were so important. I mean, I maybe like 3 years ago before I started this podcast, the initial idea was actually to just do an American Girl deep dive. I was going to go through all of
Yeah,
the books and compare like the historical accuracy and all that stuff. But then I realized, there's already a bunch of American Girl podcasts out there. I collect dolls. Why not just make it more broad? But I definitely do like
sure.
little, you know, deep dives on certain American girls like we're doing today. When you said this project started in February 2024, I think. So how did it all start?
It was really simple. It started with a simple email. They just reached out to me. I believe it was an editor there and said that they loved working with me in the past, something similar to that, and are looking into working with me in the future. They have an idea for a Girl of the Year, which I knew was a big deal, and was I available at that time? And I sort of wasn't. I was kind of working on a couple of other projects. But I so enjoyed working with American Girl, collaborating with them on Maritza, that I didn't feel like I could say no to it. And they gave me some guidelines. And one of the first guidelines was that one that she would be Mexican American. Cool. I'm Mexican American. Love it. Love the representation. Two, they told me she would be a descendant of Samantha Parkington. Well, that just blew me away because I love that idea. They said they had been thinking about creating dolls who were descendants of previous American Girl dolls and that they were going to do it with this one. And I felt honored, like to be part of that, like to be thought of even before I said yes and accepted the offer. Just the idea that they'd reached out to me for something so important and so monumental in the lifetime of American Girl and the
Right.
brand, felt significant to me and like I could not pass up this chance and didn't want to. So I would figure out a way to make my other writing projects work with this. And they told me it would be a two book. One would be the diary that, of course, goes along with the doll, and then a second novel. And so I think I talked to my agent. All authors have to have agents, literary agents, and we go over the deal with them and see if we can fit it in and see if it works. And I said yes. And I was so happy I said yes.
Incredible. Like I just can't even imagine as I mean as an author, like in general, like it's incredible that you're able to do what you love and put out books with your, the stories you come up with. But I mean to be part of such a big, I mean American Girl is a huge brand. Hundreds of
Yes.
thousands of people are going to read this book and it just comes with it, right? And it's going to be something and we'll get into it a little bit later. I love this descendant idea that
Yes.
American Girl is picking up on, and I hope it continues. But tell us a little bit about Raquel. Who is she? Tell me, just give me a little synopsis on who she is. And I also feel like I need to be holding mine as well.
Yeah, so Raquel, I mean the name, which they let me choose the name, but
Wow.
they have to go through a lot of different processes to make sure that they can use that name, correct? Right?
Right.
So we had actually come up with a list of names, and and what I mean by we is it was myself and Jennifer Hirsch, who was the editor that I was working with specifically on this doll, and she has in the past worked on Samantha and other dolls as well. But we just kind of came up with a list of names, and Raquel was one of the names I had suggested because I have an aunt Raquel. And plus, I love the way the name sounds in English and in Spanish. It's easily translatable, Raquel, Raquel.
Right.
So it works out really well. It's just a beautiful name. And but for the longest time, even when I was working on the manuscript, the first diary, I was just calling her Little Sammy. That was her
Oh,
name. That was her code name in all the manuscripts because we didn't know what the name was going to be yet. It was like a 6 month process to get that name cleared, or one of the names of the 10 or 20 we suggested cleared. So I was just calling her Little Sammy throughout the manuscript. I just remember like that whole process being super fun, but feeling like how do I nail her character without a name to her, So
right.
I just called her Little Sammy. And by doing that, I also researched Samantha Parkington, even though my editor, Jen, was an expert of all things Samantha, and I felt like I was in good hands with her. I still wanted to read all the old novels about Samantha. I really wanted to get a grip on her character and the time that she was growing up in. And if you recall, Samantha Parkington is growing up during the industrial age,
Of
right?
course.
So she's growing up in a time where children work in factories, where they work in factories with inhumane treatment, right? They don't get breaks. They don't have proper shoes and equipment. A lot of the kids are getting sick from like lungs and inhaling bad things. And at the same time, women are marching on the streets just for the right to vote at this time where Samantha is growing up. And there's sort of like this classism too during this time.
Yes.
We're like, we're this class, you're that class, we don't meddle with this class of people, all of that. And Samantha's growing up in this time. And she just shines as someone who's caring, compassionate, way ahead of her time. She kind of sees these old rules and is like, well, why can't women have the right to vote? Why do we put children in factories to work? This is wrong. And why can't I befriend other kids who maybe aren't in the same neighborhood or the same class as I am? And don't all children deserve the right to be educated? These simple,
Absolutely.
simple principles. But Samantha, in her own way, coming from a place of affluence, coming from a place of wealth, I think maybe because she was an orphan herself who had lost her parents at a very young age and was living with her grandmary at the time. just saw like sort of had this sort of sensitivity and sensibility for people who were also downtrodden and maybe didn't have the best advantages in life and just wanting to speak out for them. So I kind of put, for my long answer to your very your short question, is that I kind of poured all of that as much as I could into Raquel. Even though she's a young woman in a different time. She's a Mexican American growing up in Kansas City. Women now have the right to vote. Kids aren't forced to work in factories, United States. All of these things have changed. Progress has happened. But there's still things, enough things to speak out about, right? And,
100%.
she finds her way of speaking out, in going to a family reunion in the East Coast, learning about her great great grandma, Samantha, connecting with her story, connecting with her family, seeing both sides of her family. And I just try to pour that compassion, that thoughtfulness, that feistiness of wanting to speak out into her. And I hope that I did well because I really loved Samantha. I walked away from all my research just being like, what a character Samantha Parkington was. And if I can even capture half of that with Raquel, then my job is done. I will be happy.
And you know what? I'm gonna say, I think you did. I read this book
Thank
yesterday. I had
you.
already read the diary, and I've read almost all of the American Girl books when it comes to like the historical classic figures. And
Yeah.
this is my first time reading a book from a first person perspective. So it was a little bit
Hmm.
different. But I'm sure you know, like Samantha is definitely one of the most, if not the most, beloved American Girl characters. And it's so funny, like
Yes.
as a kid, all my friends had Samantha and I did not because I was like, well, I'm gonna get Molly. Like everyone has Samantha. And like
Molly is great
I
too.
think I think that there is like this weird you get on TikTok and you get on Instagram and there's this weird like perception of Samantha aside from the fact that she is an icon. There is this weird perception that Samantha is this like spoiled brat and I'm like you have not read these books if you think that
Not
because
at all.
honestly Samantha is like if anyone's a brat it's Molly and uh Samantha is like just like the most genuine. She's such a good friend. And she also, like she asks questions. She wants answers to questions. She wants to know why this is this way and why it can't be this way. And I think she is, I call myself a Samantha conformist because as an adult, when I revisited these books, I was like, okay, yeah, I like this girl a lot. Like she is so cool and so sweet. And I think you really put that into Raquel. I was gonna ask you, so when it comes to like guidelines and stuff, were there any aspects of Samantha's, backstory that American Girl was like, you must say this?
Not really, but they definitely wanted me to find Samantha's diaries and letters between her and like her uncle Guard or Aunt Cornelia.
Yes.
So that was really the only thing. That's the only thing I can think of is that they said, we really want her to find the diary, and I don't remember any restrictions or any sort of limitations of any sort of like that. Just those little things. And they did mention one other guideline was that somehow they wanted adoption brought up into the book. And I think that's because we all know, well, those who've read Samantha Parkin know that, that at first Samantha was raised with her grandmary, right?
Right.
Because her two parents had died. Her parents had died in a boating accident. But then later, Samantha is adopted by her Uncle Gard and Aunt Cornelia, who have just married. So I loved it that they were still wanting to put that sort of adoption theme into the book. And they even brought experts as advisors onto the book who would read my manuscript as well. There was an advisor on marine biology because there's a whole dolphin
Right.
sort of scene and storyline going on, but also an expert of adoption to make sure that I was kind of using the right language, the correct language, and expressing it. And I love that because I was telling one of my cousins about that recently, and she told me she was adopted, and I had no clue. I had no clue she was adopted. And she said, I love that you guys are bringing in the adoption story because that's my story. And then she went on to tell me her whole adoption story that I never knew about my own cousin, that she was an infant child when she was adopted. It was just, I guess it just really hit me like this is very special. So not only is it part of, bringing back something from Samantha's story coming into Raquel's life, but also something that resonates with a lot of people out there. And she's absolutely right. My cousin is absolutely right. There are not enough stories that bring up adoption and what that's like, and that sort of point of view. So I was glad to have done that. Yeah.
I think American Girl has always done such a wonderful job when it comes to getting experts in, making sure everything is very as correct as possible. And some of these stories deal with a lot of very difficult things, and I think
Yeah.
they're always so successful at bringing it down to a child's level where it's like you can still understand this without, I mean, especially like a story like Addie, it's a scary story, right? But they make it, comprehensible to, a kid that is 9. And I've always really respected that. How much of like your life story did you put into Raquel? Because I know we talk a lot. I mean, I think one of the standout parts of these books is the mixed family and the heritage of it all. I
Yeah.
think you did a fabulous job with that. And I'm just
Thank
going to tell
you.
you now, my friend Andrea, shout out to Trish. Um, she's not an American Girl doll collector, but she grew up with them. She knows how much it means to me, and we're always talking about them. And when this doll came out, I mean, she kind of has that same kind of background. She was like, I've never felt so seen before. And I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. That is the point of all of this. So how much of that did you put into the stories and tell me a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we knew she was going to be of mixed heritage, that, her father was going to be Mexican American, her mom was going to be a descendant of Samantha. That's a lot like my own background. My dad is Mexican American and my mom is white, and her family comes from sort of Dutch English background, Kansas people, Kansas stock people. And so I put all of that into her as well. I tried to bring up her Mexican American culture as much as possible in the same way that I've lived it, very organically, not forced. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It seemed natural to me that she would love Selena Quintanilla music,
Of
that she would
course.
love to like want to play music and get people dancing on the floor because every party I've ever gone to as a Mexican American child in my family has always involved dancing and music. It's always a big part of every celebration we have. Everyone ends up dancing on the dance floor. Now, that's just my lived experience, but I was able to put that through with Raquel. Also, the paleta shop here in Kansas City, in particular, where Raquel is from, Kansas City, there's several paleta shops. These are these delicious ice cream pops. What do they call them? I forget the English word for them. Kind of like they're just kind of like ice pops, or what do you call them? I forget. Ice cream bars, maybe? Ice cream
Okay, sure.
bars,
Yeah, yeah.
but made of fruit juices. So you'll get flavors like watermelon, mango, coconut, all these amazing lemon flavors. And I thought that was really important to put that in there as well, because also I read in Samantha's book how much she loved ice cream, and
Yes.
going to the ice cream parlor was a huge deal with her and her Grand Mary. And that's kind of what paleta shops are like here in Kansas City. People gather at them as a meeting place for families. Like after Mass on Sunday, they go
Right.
to the paleta shop. All the whole family goes. After dinner, they stop by the ice cream parlor, the paleta shop, to get an ice cream, and everyone just sits around, eats, talks, and just enjoys their ice cream. So I loved kind of mixing those two pieces, from Samantha's life and Raquel's into a more modern version of what that might look like. I'm trying to think of what else in Raquel, and just the love for both sides of her family. Even though they're both entirely different, one's in Kansas City, one's in the East Coast,
Right.
wanting to have like that connection with family and that love and want for connection to even extend beyond what is present right now. What are my ancestors about? Who are my ancestors? What was my grandma doing? What was my great grandpa doing? What was their story here, before I was even born and thought of? And I really love that sort of connection to her history, that she's interested in learning more about Samantha, her great great grandma, what she's all about.
Right. And I just feel like Samantha was the same way. So
Yes,
I think the way you connected them as I mean, they come from two very different worlds, right?
yes.
But there's still, you can feel Samantha in her, which is so cool. I loved the illustrations. I loved looking through that and see, I mean, her steamer trunk. I was like, that's exactly it. Like,
I
that's
know.
incredible. Like, that's
So
amazing
much
that they
cute
did
stuff.
that.
Yes.
So much cute stuff. I'm wondering, did you, I mean, obviously you hadn't worked with and known of American Girl, the brand, prior to this. Did you, and I mean, they're telling you, okay, we're going to bring you in on this. You're going to make a story and it's going to be connected to one of our most, treasured characters. Like, I imagine there had to have been some kind of like pressure with that. Did you ever feel stress? Like, I would have.
I did. I did because especially when it was, Samantha Parkington, after I started reading more of her stories, realizing this is such a treasured character. But I felt so like that the American Doll people had my back. Do you know what I
Right.
mean?
Hmm.
Because I had Jen Hirsch working alongside me, going through the manuscript with me, who knows Samantha like the palm of her hand, right? So I trusted her. I felt very safe in that space that I could write the doll and they would tell me, oh, no, you're going off a little here, or oh, yeah, let's bring it back here, or that. Plus, they had these experts that I mentioned already. They had Dr. Deanna Leon, who was a leading scholar of Latina girlhood, Dr. Sarah Sharp, who was this Marine veterinarian. They had one more expert dealing with adoption and the themes of adoption, whose name, sorry, I don't remember right now, but it's at the tip of my tongue. I just don't have it. But I just felt like I had all these experts around me, kind of also making sure that I was hitting the right notes.
Right.
Um, Especially with Samantha Parkington, having the American Doll people who all knew her like the back of their hand and I could be if I went wrong, they would call me on it and they'd get me back on track.
I've heard they're very good about that. I think I talked to the Kellen Hertz. She wrote the Courtney
Yes,
series, and she's kind of said the same thing. She felt very strong about, you know, what she was putting in the book, and that they gave her a lot of creative freedom to really
yes,
express herself, which I really appreciate because at the end of the day, that's like what American Girl is all about. And I mean, because it could have gone the other way, right? They could have been very, very specific, like, no, you need to do this
yes,
and this and this. And that kind of, I think, would almost hurt the stories because you're taking away from the author's authenticity. So I think that's great. I mean, this is the second time I've heard this. So I'm
yes.
assuming they do that with all of their authors, which I just think is awesome. You did read the series. Thank you. That was one question that I was like, I'm going to ask her this because everyone's going to be wondering it. So I mean, I just want to say, from an American Girl fan to you, like that's appreciated because we're not, no one's gonna, everyone would be upset if you didn't. And I think it's very clear that you did. So great job on that.
Yeah.
When is the first time you saw the actual doll?
Gosh, that's a good question. Besides the meeting with my editor every once in a while, there were meetings with like the marketing team, design team. There was probably like five or six of them with me on Zoom. And they would kind of show me like the palette of colors they were working on, some of the really adorable products that were going to go along with the Raquel doll. And so I started seeing my first glimpses of some of those just, on Zoom, nothing
Right,
physical, just kind of like ideas. And then people were just kind of, and everyone would kind of give their feedback. And I remember seeing the cute little paleta cart. That's one of the little things. And I remember, of course, sweet little Lucita with her
yes.
little bag that says Lucita. It's so adorable. That's probably one of my favorite products right there. That I even got to name the dog Lucita is really sweet. And I just remember kind of seeing the palette and seeing that they were, kind of doing Easter eggs for Samantha, little color schemes that would
Right,
differentiate Raquel from Samantha, but still keep her kind of like in that family of colors and palettes and design. Everything in Raquel's story happens on the beach, right? Happens in the
right,
East Coast, sort of like a Cape Cod kind of a place locale. And so everything was beachy, summery, and fun, from the outfits all the way down to like the pickleball set and the umbrellas and the paletas and things like that. So it was just super fun to see it all. I don't own any of those things right now, but I loved all of them so much. I just thought it was really cute.
Oh, so cute. I am like definitely probably not going to get much of it just because it is so expensive. I'm not a rich person, but I did get the doll the day she came out. I love her vanity. I think it's
Yes,
so cute. And I love her beach outfit with the big hat. The
yes.
dog, of course, is on my wish list. I have two chihuahuas, so she's got to get her dog. And I mean, overall, the doll, I mean, do you remember getting it? Like, like that had to have been like such a moment for you.
It was. Like I have video of me when it showed up on the porch outside my house. And, like she's got this beautiful little locket. I don't know if you can see it. It
Yeah,
comes
yeah,
with
yeah.
like little accessory and the sunglasses. I have the sunglasses. I'm not quite sure where they are. And a
Same.
tote bag and stuff like that. It's really cute. But I did take video of myself when it showed up on my porch, just being super excited. I just haven't posted it yet. I was kind of like, do people really want to see me open up a box? Yes, they do. So
Yes,
I
yes,
need
they
to do.
do.
Yes, they do. So I need to do that. But yeah, it was super exciting. It was super exciting and just seeing all her fun stuff. And she's just such a pretty doll with a
She
cute little
is.
outfit, you
She
know?
is. And honestly, so like getting into the whole girl of the year thing, like I've collected American Girl dolls my whole life, and the girl of the year, I have a few of them. It was never like a big thing on my radar though. And I have to tell, and I'm not sure if you're aware of this or not, but like I honestly have not seen as much discourse on an American Girl of the Year doll for years. Like this doll is such a big deal. And I do think a big part of it is the tie-in with
Yeah,
Samantha.
Samantha.
And
Hmm.
I just think like this is a game-changing doll because I think for a while, I mean that line does get criticized quite a bit. And now that we're there, every company has gotten more diverse, and that's great. And having that representation is so important. And I think that this doll is going to change the course of the Girl of the Year because I think it is such a smart idea from here on out. I mean, I think there's like 20, almost 20 historical, maybe 20, a few more historical characters. Like from here on out, like I just think they should do these tie-ins with these classic characters because not only
I
is
do
it
too.
bringing something new, fresh, to the kids of today, but it's
Hmm.
also, a lot of the people that are having kids today that are around the age to have an American Girl doll grew up with the classics. And I just think it
Absolutely.
is it's such an idea I never thought of. I never even imagined it. And now that it has happened, I'm like, okay, next year I want to see a descendant of Josefina or
Yeah,
Molly or Addie or Kirsten. I just think it is so cool. And I think it's also, a great bonding experience for parents and their kids because also right now you can go to the American Girl store. You can get your little girl or boy Raquel and you can get yourself Samantha in her original form. And I just think
I
that
know.
is
I
so
want it.
cool. You must have it. You must get her. But I just think it's such a cool idea, and like you are part of that, and you're the first one, and I think you should really give yourself a pat on the back because it's such a great
Thank you.
idea, and like the story is great too, and at
Thank
like
you.
like we were talking about. I mean, obviously everyone wants the dolls, and the dolls are so great, and we love them, but the story is like what really. I mean, as a kid hours and hours of play with these dolls because I read Kirsten's Christmas story or
Yeah,
Molly is at camp or Addie's learning how to read and it was just hours of play and I just think that them doing this whole connection with past characters is going to be huge and I'm so excited to see and
oh,
hope that
thank
they
you.
continue it and I just you're a big part of that so I
Thank
think
you. I hope so.
I think forever you're going to be tied to this and you're going to be tied into the American Girl world. And whether that is something that you are overtly excited about or not, like you're a part of it and it's going to be forever, right?
Yes.
It's
No,
very, very cool.
absolutely. And I feel that every day when I go out to, as an author, children's author, I do school visits and the kids are always very excited about the books. The kids want to scream and, they're so excited, but the librarians and the teachers always rush up to me afterward and they go, I loved Samantha Parkington. Like, because when they were kids, that was the
Yeah.
doll. And so they're like, thank you for bringing it back. And I'm like, well, I wish I could take all the credit, but it's not just all me. It's American Girl that had the great idea. But I just love it that grown women who are now professionals and educators and teachers and librarians get so excited about this doll. It's just very precious. It's very sweet. I definitely like feel the love and I definitely am grateful for the opportunity to be part of it.
Very, very exciting, I'm sure. And just a few more things like with Raquel,
Sure.
what do you hope people take away from her story?
I hope a couple of things. And I didn't really set out for this, when I was writing the novels, but I hope in all things that they love the story and it makes them want to read more. right? Whether
Hmm.
it's another American Girl book out there, doesn't matter to me. If it just makes you curious and want to read more, I hope it does that. I always, as a children's author, strive to make kids and people lifelong readers, right? That you find that book that changes your life and you makes you want to read more. So I hope that first of all. And two, I hope it makes them a little fascinated with history because she does have an amazing history with Samantha Parkington and we're that place in this country at that time. And I hope that it makes them curious about their own ancestors and where they come from and who came before them and what kind of life did they lead, what kind of virtues were important to them and character was important to them. I bet they'll find them some places where they'll be very similar to their ancestors and places where it's changed and changed for the good. Yeah.
Beautifully said.
Thank you.
So tell me, what else are you working on? What do you have coming out? What are some book suggestions that you've written that if someone enjoys the Raquel book, what are some of your other works that people might want to get into?
Sure. Well, any of my first four books, I think kids out there would really like if they like Raquel's story. Gabby Lost and Found was my first debut novel. It's still out there, and it's about a young girl who, volunteers at an animal shelter. That's very much like Lucita-ish, animal lover, wants all the animals in the shelter to find their forever family, and so kind of goes on her mission to do that. Allie First at Last was my second book. Again, friendship drama, lots of dogs and cats. And then Letty Out Loud, which is the one that won me my Pura Belpré Award from the Library Association, American Library Association, is probably one of my favorite books. Again, straw protagonist, feisty, speaks out, kind-hearted, those sort of things. I think if they wanted to read more from me, those would be great books. And of course, any other American Girl book out there, go back and find those Samantha Parkington ones or Molly ones or Josefina, which is one
Uh,
of my favorites. Yeah, go out there and find those and just be introduced. And I really liked what was it? Leela, the gymnast. I really love
Lila,
those stories.
yes.
Lila, yeah, I think those stories were very, very good. And I personally, as a grown woman, read them and enjoyed them and thought they were great and passed them on to my nieces.
It's so funny you bring up Lila. Outside of my doll world, I actually run a gymnastics program. And
Wow.
I got Lila, of course, because I was like, oh, she's a gymnast. And like reading that book was hilarious to me because I'm going through it and I'm like, oh my God, she's a level 4 gymnast. I can tell like from all whoever did the research on this, or if the author is a gymnast, I was like, I knew exactly what she needs to do to fix this skill. And it
Yep.
was just incredible. That is one of the other
No, the
girls.
research they do is amazing. If it's not the author, the experts they bring in just to make sure they're nailing it every time, for
Yes,
sure.
they do a fantastic job. And I mean, congratulations. I mean, this I didn't even say this. We are recording this the day after the new Raquel book has dropped. So
Yes. Raquel saves the
congratulations.
wedding. Yes. Thank
I
you so much. I'm so excited for the book.
of course I'm sure you can pick that up anywhere that has books, of course.
Yeah, any favorite bookseller, even at the library too, if you want to just check it out. But you can find it at Amazon, you can find it at your independent bookstore, you can buy it, I think even at Target. Anywhere you buy books is where you can find it. Yep.
Of course, definitely highly recommend that. I enjoyed it very much. Angela, if people want to reach out and let you know their thoughts and how important this doll has been to them or your stories, where can they find you?
Sure. Well, just in case this gets out before this weekend, but I'll be in Dallas, Texas at the American Girl store there. I'll be answering questions and signing books. And then I'll be in Chicago on November 15th at their American Girl store. Very excited about that. Signing books, answering questions. And then if you can't make those events or you want to see if I'm coming to your city for an event, just go to my website, angelacervantes.com, and it will be out there. All my upcoming events for the doll and anything else, any other book signings I'm doing around will be on that web page. And also, I try to keep my Instagram account updated as much as I can. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, that's great too. And it's just Angela Cervantes, author.
Amazing. Well, Angela, thank you so much. Congratulations on the book and the doll. And just thank you again so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. And I know the listeners are going to love this. So,
Thank you for having me. It was really fun.
yay. Oh my gosh, that was so much fun. Thank you, Angela, so much for coming on the show. I had a blast. Make sure you guys all check out the new American Girl Girl of the Year book, Raquel Saves the Wedding. It's a good one. Check out the doll as well. Again, thank you guys so much for listening to the Iconic Dollcast. I have so much fun with this show. I'm going to have a brand new episode for you guys next week. As always, please follow me on Instagram at Iconic Dollcast or Britney Spears Custom Dolls. Head over to my YouTube channel at Iconic Dollcast. Please subscribe, like, comment. It really helps. And I will talk with you guys next time.